I love Vietnam. First, because it's a beautiful country, and really, I love the people here. Secondly, I believe in Vietnam. What I love about this place is it's not all about tech. There are people putting up coffee shops, fashion lines. Who knows? But it's not the obvious. And I think that's the most inspiring part about Vietnam, is that you meet all these different kinds of characters. It kind of forces you to, jump on the wagon and let's all do this together. What's good about this place is it's more about art. Everything is a work of art. A cup of coffee to something in a gallery. Everybody considers what they do art.
Lack of resources. We're a young industry here. The training level is young, the talents are young. You don't have a lot of resources. I feel like you got to do everything yourself sometimes. You could be an illustrator, but you've got to also be an account guy who sell your work somewhere. You've got to do everything. Like case in point, like Behance, portfolio reviews. The guys who organize this massive thing are just like 3 graphic designers, and they have to go talk to sponsors. They have to negotiate with F&B partners. You got to be jack of all trades, and you got to cross over. I feel like because of the environment we're in, we're forced to be like these multi-talented people, and I think it is going to grow that way. Even in advertising, it's very hard to hire somebody who just do copy now. It's a general trend, but it's particularly relevant in Vietnam because of the lack of resources.
Get out. Boss, get out. Doing an interview here.
My circle, I feel like the most interesting people are the people who are kind of hustlers, and they don't have a lot of resources, and they're just kind of scraping things together to do something, to ship products, not necessarily do it perfect or leverage any kind of corporate sponsorship or company sponsorship. People like Mayhem Saigon is a clothing store, and honestly, their promo video is better than 90% of the commercials that I see. And it's just a guy on a camera shooting his friends. People like that inspire me. I think that's my take on where Vietnam is going. It's doing things yourself, getting by with very little, and surprising the bigger guys. I feel like that's our identity. We're like the underdogs.
They are quite an entrepreneurial culture, I find. They're very, very open to starting a little business, and it seems to be kind of quite easy in terms of your capital required to start up a company here. A lot of Vietnamese do own, even I have staff who work for me but then still own a little coffee shop or something like that to subsidize their income. So they're very industrious culture. And in terms of making it creatively, there's a lot of gaps here for creativity. Bringing a good sensibility of creativity and solid workable ideas is always going to get you very far here. My advice would be is to immerse yourself in the culture. Don't exclusively hang out with the expats or in the expat community. Rather dig deep into the local. They're very accepting. They're very welcoming people. They'd be more than happy to hang out with you. In my experience, has been the biggest barrier to foreign creatives in Vietnam has been the inability to assimilate into Vietnamese culture. It's a very different and a very nuanced culture, and you need to be kind of very careful and just be patient and just work with them as opposed to working against them, and I think you've got to let a little bit of that global sensibility go. The guys that I've seen struggle the hardest are the guys that push back the hardest, and that seems to be the breaking point for a lot of them. I'm a pretty patient guy. I'm a kind of I'm fairly easy to get on with, so I think that's how I've managed to last 10 years here. The fire-breathing dragon of a creative director is not never really going to resonate here. For me, the future for creativity, or the outlook of creativity in Vietnam, is incredibly positive. I think it's only going to get better. In the future, I would look out for Vietnam as a creative hotspot in the region, because I think there's a lot of pent-up expression that hasn't been said in the last 30 to 40 years here that is just waiting to come out, and I think it's about unlocking that.
I think a lot of it has to do with balls. Creatives are incredibly, believe it or not, sensitive little creatures. And if you're going to do anything innovative, you're going to have to break the rules. If you want any attention at all, you're going to have to cause controversy. And not everyone has really the stomach to face criticism constantly. You're not good enough. What you're doing is weird and crazy. It doesn't make sense. You don't know anything about interior design. What are you doing? What are you doing, creating spaces for these guys? You can't listen to that. The other thing I would say is just keep your mouth shut and open your eyes and ears, a little bit more. Because there are some creatives who are a bit too, who believe that they're special without proving it. It's really important to, I guess, have a bit of balance. There's a lot of resistance, I think, internally within the agency and externally, as in with the client and the consumers. I think they need patience. That's the most important thing. To think that you can change the market as soon as you land or get off the plane is, I think, a dream. I'd like to believe that. But from what I've seen, it doesn't happen. And I think it's going to change eventually, but you need a lot of patience.
I think everybody has their own survival tips. For me, what I find works is generosity. You've got to be so generous with your time, your talent, because it's such a small city. I mean, just from chatting with you, we know so many people in common. It's just a small network. If you're an asshole or if you're mean or if you're not generous, it'll come back to you. If you are generous, it'll come back to you tenfold. So I feel like if anybody comes to you for a project, help them out. If anybody needs an introduction, help them out. So my number one survival tip is to be generous in Vietnam. I think you need to be flexible, as in don't try to have a plan for everything. It sounds so cliche, but go with the flow.